Let's start in the SEC, where Georgia will travel to Knoxville to take on Tennessee, reeling after that embarrassing loss against Missouri. Georgia sitting at 10-0, Tennessee 7-3. Georgia 10.5-point favorite here. Under has taken some money down to 58.5. So obviously, I think I would imagine. Well, an interesting scenario that we've talked about a lot of wrenches in the college football playoffs. And a really interesting scenario is Georgia loses to Tennessee but beats Alabama. You throw them in the one-loss mix with a pretty soft schedule. There's a lot of chaos to come, unless all these teams just went out. Tennessee, I mean, they're a hard nut for me to crack. Obviously, one of the best rushing attacks in the country, and then you throw the variance of Joe Milton in there, right? So he'll have these good flashes and bad flashes. It's just so inconsistent. I was surprised that Tennessee couldn't run it. I wasn't surprised that Tennessee couldn't run it well against Missouri. Missouri's run defense is very good, but I thought they would have a little bit more success. And their defense, that was the most surprising aspect to me last week, is their defense just couldn't do anything. I mean, they couldn't they run, pass, you name it. And then, you go back to the Florida game where on the road they got crushed. Obviously, different story in Neyland Stadium. Crowd will be hyped here. Georgia's offense is rolling right now, hitting their stride at the right time, getting healthier across the board as well. The defense is definitely a step down from the unit that we saw over the past 2 years. You can run on them a bit. They're not really getting a ton of pressure. The secondary is an elite. Now, look, it's still one of the best defenses in the country, but it's not a unit that's going to completely shut down teams. And it's pretty logical. They lost a ton of NFL talent. The question is, can Tennessee take advantage? I think that they'll have some success on the ground, but what can Milton do? Can he be consistent enough? Can he hit some deep balls? It's a tough game for me to crack. What do you see here in Georgia, Tennessee?
Might be Nico time, right? I took the under. I split my bet on a first half under and a full game under here. Both head coaches came out in their press conferences this week and talked about how they need to establish the run. Josh Heupel starting off saying that the best way to keep pressure off of Joe Milton is to simply stay on schedule and get the acquired yards and first and second down. Easier said than done, right? So, they have Jalen Wright and Jabari Small. You would think they'd be able to take the load and ease the pressure off Joe Milton, who's, average depth of target is lowest of his career. You would think that that's the path. Okay, well, let's go down there and say that Tennessee wants to do that. The way that you beat Georgia, I keep saying this over and over and over every week, is outside zone. Peyton Thorne, 90 yards, it's because of outside zone. You look at Jackson Dart, how successful they were. The problem was Ole Miss ran out of healthy tackles, healthy everything in that game. They were running thin on health. But the way to attack Georgia, it's all in the run concept metrics, is outside zone. Tennessee does not run outside zone at all. 15 snaps this season, they run outside zone. Their entire life is inside zone. Georgia defense, even with a light box showing 6 in there, they have been able to tear that apart. So I don't think Tennessee's going to be able to run the ball. I think there is going to be long down and distances and third down for Joe Milton, and that's going to be a very inefficient day for him going up against that quarters coverage of Georgia. Now, on the other side, Kirby Smart said the key to playing on the road in the SEC is to be able to establish the run at the very first part of the game. He says we have to be more physical at the line of scrimmage, and we have to dominate them at the line of scrimmage. So, the Tennessee run defense, it's like you said, like they were excellent prior to the Missouri game. They were excellent at stopping inside and outside zone, which is what Georgia's going to try to put on them. So if the Tennessee defense steps up, I'm looking good with my full game under, my first half under. At some point, I do believe Carson Beck's going to start hitting explosives downfield. Now that we, have seen that Ladd McConkey is hurt again, Brock Bowers is working back in, but if it is Brock Bowers, it's shorter passing and not long bombs that are going down the field. So I like the under here, 59 being second biggest key number in totals. So try to get on the right side of that.
Any feel on the side, and if not, or even if so, could you see Tennessee winning this game? What is the path? How would this have to play out?
Well, I make the number 8.5. And so Sunday I was sitting around thinking I've got to take a Tennessee number at 10.5. I have to, just as a numbers perspective alone. So
Yeah, I'm at
then,
9.92.
yeah. And so I went down the path of, okay, well, you're going to have to be successful establishing the rush. The fact that Joe Milton does not run off tackle, or Jalen Wright or Jabari Small don't run off tackle, which you can do against Georgia because they have a light box and they allow it. And we've seen quarterbacks do it to them before. Brady Cook did it. Peyton Thorne did it. Tennessee doesn't do it. And so I can't do it. Even though the number's higher, I can't do it because the inevitable Georgia 2-score lead and explosives. I'm not getting in front of the Death Star, right? It is Georgia Death Star mode late November. I'm not getting in front of it when you can't do the one thing that they have trouble with.
What is the path for Tennessee winning this game? Milton just has to find those like stretches where he is accurate for a longer stretch and hit some deep balls. Is that like?
I mean, you're asking me what
so inconsistent with those.
Right. They have to establish the run to generate more than 6 guys in the box. Once you do that, Georgia will let up in their quarters coverage. But then again, remember, this is fundamentally a problem for Josh Heupel for years to come. You and I will be doing this podcast next year. Let's say he gets his Hendon Hooker back and he gets his wide receivers back. This is still a timing offense, and Georgia is going to stab your shoulders at the line of scrimmage and get you off your timing concepts. Like I'm really trying to make a case for Tennessee here. I've tried every which way, pass and run. I can't come up with it. I think they'll be feisty, right? After being embarrassed last week, they'll probably play a really good first half.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they're going to be in it early. I just don't know if Milton can make enough plays because the Georgia offense right now is playing too well to just, keep them to 17-20. You're not going to do that. So Milton's going to eventually have to hit some shots, and I don't know if he'll be able to do so.
I was feeling good about Ole Miss through the first 3 or 4 series, right? I was feeling good about Ole Miss, and then this shit just snowballs on you with Georgia.